Brutalist director talks 3.5-hour runtime. This is very, very interesting because there's a new film called The Brutalist, and The Brutalist is a 3.5-hour period piece that premiered at the Venice Film Festival. So, this is coming from Brady Corbett. Brady Corbett says, there's discourse around the film's runtime is quite silly as it premieres with a 215-minute runtime. The Brutalist, we should be past that. It's 2024, he says. I think that's awful wording, and I'm going to get into why. But this is coming at it. It says that he is shrugging off the discourse of the film's runtime being too long. The film does everything that we are told we are not allowed to do, the director said during the Brutalist press conference. I think it's quite silly, and it jumps. I think it's quite, let's try it one more time. I think it's quite silly, actually, to have a conversation about runtime because that's like criticizing a book for being 700 pages instead of 100 pages. He continued that for him, it's more about how much story there is to tell. That's a good point. But maybe the next thing I make will be 45 minutes, and I should be allowed to do that. We should all be allowed to do that. The idea we have to fit into a box is quite silly, he said. We should be past that. It's 2025. As Harmony Korine once said, cinema is stuck in the birth canal. And I agree with them, so we should help it out. Here's the thing. This is one where I think there's... how to say this? Some films do need to be. They do need to be 3.5 hours. They really do, and you don't feel the runtime. Look at something like The Godfather, right? The Godfather. That's almost 3 hours and 20 minutes. Fantastic film. Titanic, 3 hours, 14 minutes. Perfect example. Killers of the Flower Moon, 3.5 hours, 3 hours and 26 minutes. I didn't feel that runtime in theaters. I didn't. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I cannot wait to see it again because I do have it on digital. Criterion Collection, please put it out on Blu-ray. I'm praying. Criterion Collection, please pick it up along with Coda. Thank you. So what he says about the books, 700-page book to 100-page book, that's irrelevant because I'm going to tell you why that's bullshit. 700-page book? Yeah. Why is it 700 pages? There's more detail that goes into a book. In the movies, you don't go, and now he turns the corner. He walks into the room. It's on the page, but you don't read that out loud. That's not in dialogue. It's not in the fucking dialogue. So with this, it's all story-driven dialogue, but with a movie like this, it's all score, it's setting, it's acting, and I've heard that this film is fantastic, but people complaining about 3.5 hours, I'm sorry, how many people in this live chat will go to a film to see a 3.5 hour film in theaters? Besides me, right? Besides me. Because I went to go and see Oppenheimer at 3 hours. I went to go and see Killers of the Flower Moon at 3.5 hours. My theater will not get The Brutalist. It's not a film that's going to do well in my theater, in my town. If I had the opportunity, I would definitely go and see The Brutalist. Comparing it to a 700-page book to a 100-page book, that's bullshit. Because you don't compare it. What you do then is you go, okay, let's look at something like Killers of the Flower Moon or Titanic. People didn't really complain about those. You didn't hear about that. But it also limits how many times you can play it in theaters. If your film is 3.5 hours, you can't play that film 7 times in one day unless you're like a Marvel film or an Oppenheimer where you're a big-time release. This is going to be a big-time release. Hate to say it, it's not. I want it to be. It's just not. But then what he says is very interesting too. So in the article with Variety, he said, maybe the next thing I do will be 45 minutes. The next thing he makes maybe 45 minutes, and he should be allowed to do that. He is allowed to do that. We should be allowed to do that, yes. But how much story is there to tell? That's what he says. How much story there is to tell is what matters to him. I get that, but you can't say that the definitive runtime of your film for the audience is 3.5 hours until we see what the audience thinks. I've heard it's a bit slower, but at 3.5 hours, it's going to be slow. We know that going in. But what the Brutalist director said is rubbing people the wrong way. It's not the runtime that bothers us. It's what you do at that runtime. It's being said it's a masterpiece. I've heard the word masterpiece thrown about. I've saw a couple reviews. This is very interesting because this is a film that can potentially be an Oscar player. This could be a Best Picture winner. This could be a Best Actor winner. This could be a Best Score. Maybe even a Best Screenplay if it's done right. Maybe Best Costumes, Production Design. We'll just have to see. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think that he's right about going into a 3.5 hour film? Do you think he's right that he should be allowed? Yes, he should be allowed. Comparing it to a 700-page book and a 100-page book, I think that's complete bullshit. I think you're just digging for something there that's not even there. But let me know your thoughts below. What do you think about the Brutalist? About the Brutalist director's thoughts on the runtime controversy. But there's that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.